In our last class, we stated one of the law known as Ohm's law, and also we understood the relation between voltage, current and resistance through this law. In addition to this, we also studied the limitations of Ohm's law. That means Ohm's law cannot be applied under all conditions. That also we understood. Then we defined few definitions like resistivity and also conductivity. All these things we studied in our previous class. Now in our today's class, once again let us understand few more terminologies related to this electric current. The first one in which I am going to consider today is current density J. Remember, current is a scalar quantity, whereas current density J is a vector quantity. Suppose if I consider one metallic conductor, so this is the metallic conductor, then if I apply some potential difference between the two ends of the conductor, how can I apply the potential difference to the two ends of the conductor? Simply connect the two ends of the conductor either to a cell or to a battery. Okay. Suppose if this is maintained at positive potential and if this point is maintained at negative potential, that means this end is said to be at higher potential, whereas this end is said to be at lower potential. Because of this potential difference, now the current starts flowing through the metallic conductor. As a result of this, some electric field is also set up inside the conductor. Now what is meant by current density? Where? Current density where or at which point? Current density at any point inside the conductor, either at this point or at this point. First I write the definition of current density, then I explain. Current density J at a point inside a conductor is defined as the current flowing per unit area normal to the direction of the current. So this is the definition of current density. Now what I do means I choose this point, then I define current density at this point. To define current density at this point, all around this point I consider small area of cross section. So let us consider this as area of cross section. If I assume this area of cross section to be equal to 1 meter square, that means unit area of cross section I have chosen, then whatever amount of current that flows, if this is the current, then the cross sectional area will be like this. That means if this is the cross sectional area, then the current flows like this in a perpendicular direction. So that is the meaning of normal to the direction of current flow. Which is normal to the direction of current flow? Here the area of cross section is normal to the direction of current flow. So this is nothing but the current density at this point. So I can choose this point as P. Similarly, I can define the current density at some other point, say for example at the point Q. So same argument holds good here also. Means amount of current flowing through unit area taken all around this point. So flow of current is always perpendicular to the area of cross section. Here also area of cross section is taken like this and the current flow will be perpendicular. So I can write mathematically J as equal to I by A. I told you that current density is a vector quantity. See, the peculiar thing is Current is a scalar quantity, we know very well, because it follows only the laws of scalar addition. Since it do not follow the laws of vector addition, current is considered always a scalar quantity. Then how come the current density becomes a vector quantity? Let us understand this. Let us consider now. Once again, I consider one more diagram. This is nothing but a conductor whose ends are maintained at positive and negative potential in order to make the current to flow continuously. Suppose this is one cross-sectional area. Say for example, the area of cross-section is A or A1. Then this is the current that is flowing. Okay. Suppose if I want to find the current density through this area, that means current density at a point, if I want to find, then mathematically I can write the current density like this: J equal to I by A. What is A here? A is nothing but area of cross section. So let us assume this as A itself instead of A1. Now I can draw or I can represent the area in the form of vector known as area vector. How can I represent this area in the form of a vector? All that I need to do is I have to draw one normal. Look here, to this area I draw normal in the outward direction. So let us consider the normal like this. So this normal is nothing but area vector, and this is nothing but the flow of current. So current is flowing like this. That means the direction of current and the area vector are parallel to each other. Both area vector and current direction are same, one and the same. So here this is nothing but a vector quantity. If I assume this J as a scalar quantity, remember current density, no doubt it is a vector quantity. For time being, if I assume this J as a vector quantity, then if you multiply one vector, that means area vector, with a scalar quantity, according to the vector rules or vector conditions, multiplication of a vector with a scalar quantity should always lead to a new vector quantity, but this current is nothing but scalar. Look here, this is scalar, this is vector. Let's consider example now. If you consider force, which is a vector quantity, if you want to find the force mathematically, then what do? We multiply the mass with the acceleration of the body. Remember, mass is a scalar quantity, whereas acceleration is a vector quantity. So multiplying a scalar quantity by means of a vector quantity once again gives a vector quantity, but it is a new vector. Force is not same as that of acceleration. These two are different vector. So this is according to the vector rules. But here if I assume this as a scalar, then multiplication of a scalar, if you cross multiply this, what do we get now? J vector A is equal to I, which is not possible, because vector multiplied by a scalar must always give a new vector, just like this. You can consider one more example. Momentum, which is a vector quantity, is obtained by multiplying mass, which is a scalar quantity, by means of velocity, which is a vector. So vector multiplied by a scalar quantity is once again giving rise to a new vector. So that should happen. So here if you multiply a vector by means of a scalar quantity, this quantity must be certainly a vector quantity, but we know that current is always a scalar quantity. So if you consider this as a scalar quantity, certainly now J must be a vector quantity. It cannot be a scalar. So if you multiply, look here, if you multiply now J by means of another vector, what multiplication it is? it is the multiplication of two vectors. Multiplication of two vectors may either give rise to a vector quantity which is known as vector product of two vectors, or it may give rise to a scalar quantity which is known as scalar product of two vectors. So if I multiply now these two vector quantities, which is nothing but equal to current, now vector j multiplied by vector a is equal to I. So this is nothing but the scalar product of two vector. Now from this also we can understand that current is a scalar quantity, because scalar product, these are the two vector quantities and is a scalar product. Scalar product of two vectors always gives a scalar quantity. So in either way we can understand this. So the first thing is, if I consider j as a scalar, multiplication of scalar by means of vector must always give a vector quantity, but current is remaining always a scalar quantity. Therefore this cannot be scalar, this must be a vector quantity. So this is one thing. So this gives the proof to say that current density is a vector quantity. And the second one is, if you multiply one vector by means of another vector, the result may be either a vector or a scalar. But by multiplying two vectors, I am getting a scalar quantity. That means current is certainly a scalar, because these two are nothing but scalar product of two vectors. Nothing but scalar product of two vectors. So if current density is a vector quantity, then what's the direction of current density? Remember, the direction of current density is always along the direction of current itself. If current is flowing like this, current density will be also in the same direction. So the direction of J current density is along the direction of current. Okay. Suppose if I consider a wire or a metallic conductor of uniform cross section, which is bent like this. So this is one area of cross section. What's the current? I is the current. Then this is the direction of the current. Then current density at this point is nothing but J. Now at this point, what's the current density? Once again it remains to be J itself, which is all along the direction of current. Similarly, if you consider one more point here, the direction of current density is like this, which is all along the direction of current. That means at any point inside the conductor which is bent like this, the direction of current density is same as that of current flow, and the magnitude of current density remains to be same at all these points. Why? Because this is a conductor of uniform cross section. Since it is a conductor of uniform cross section, then the magnitude of the current remains same through all this area of cross section, because each area of cross section remains to be same, since the conductor itself is of same thickness or of same uniform cross section. So A is also same, area of cross section is also same at all these points, and magnitude of the current is also same. So here I divided by A equal to J, same current, same area, I by A equal to J. Once again, same current, same area, I by A equal to J. Suppose if the conductor is of variable cross section, say for example like this. If I consider like this, look here area of cross section is A1, here area of cross section is A2, and again here area of cross section is not same, it is A3. Now the current density at different points, at this point is not one and the same. If the current density at this point is J1, whereas at this point it will be J2, whereas at this point it will be J3. Why it is so? Because the area of cross section is not remaining same. Since area of cross section is changing, according to this relation, if area of cross section changes, then current density also changes, though the current remains to be same through the conductor. The magnitude of the current remains same, but the cross sectional area is not same. Since the wire is of different thickness, it has different thickness at different point. Therefore, current density varies from point to point. In this conductor, current density remains to be same at all the points, since it is a conductor of uniform cross section. Now let us understand one more concept related to this current density itself. Suppose if I consider two different points inside the conductor through which some current is flowing. All around this point, I have taken one area of cross section whose magnitude is equal to A1. Then what is the area vector corresponding to this cross sectional area? A1. So vector A1 is the area vector. So area will be like this, and area vector is perpendicular to this area. Here, what is the current density at this point through this area? Means it is given by J equal to I by A, which can also be written as I equal to J into A1, I equal to J into A1 cos theta 1. But here cos theta 1 vanishes. Why? Means here angle between the area vector and the current is equal to 0, because both are parallel to each other. When they are parallel to each other, then theta 1 is equal to 0. Then it becomes J into A1 into cos 0. That means J into A1. So this is the current flowing through this area of cross section. Okay. Then coming to this area of cross section, which is inclined like this. Now the area vector is perpendicular to this area, and current as usual it is flowing in this direction. So current is not normal to the area of cross section. Only area vector is normal or perpendicular to the area of cross section. Now in this case, all along the direction of current, I can write the component of this area vector. What that component of that area vector means? The component of that area vector is nothing but A2 cos theta 2. A2 cos theta 2. Okay. Now, what is the current through this area? First of all, current density J is given by I divided by A2 into cos theta 2. Then if you cross multiply, I will be equal to J into A2 into cos theta 2. Now here, some sort of dilemma arises in our mind. What does that means? Whether the current through this area and also through this area remains same or differs, because area of cross sections are changing. We know that if area of cross section changes, current density should change. Okay, but here what about the current through both this area? Current through both this area remains to be one and the same. Why? Means here whole cos theta, that means cos theta 1 is found to be equal to 1 here, because cos 0 is equal to 1. That's why we got I equal to J into A1. Here what happens? Cos theta 2 is found to be less than 1. That means this quantity decreases. It is found to be less than 1. Whatever amount this value decreases, that is compensated by the increase of area, because A2 is larger than A1. So therefore, the decrease of this value is compensated by the increase of this area. Therefore, once again, the product of all these remains to be same. Therefore, current through this area and also through this area remains to be same, even though the area of cross section changes. So how it remains to be same means by means of this angle. Here 0 here it is not equal to 0. So this decreases, this increases. Finally, the product of all remains to be same. So therefore, the amount of current through this area, if I take this as I1, whereas the amount of current through this area, if I take this as I2, it is found that I1 is equal to I2. I1 is equal to I2, even though A1 is not equal to A2. It is found that A2 is greater than A1. Okay, A2 is greater than A1, but here cos theta 2 is found to be less than cos theta 1. So this is how the current remains to be same. See, this aspect with respect to current density is required from the competitive examination point of view, not for your board exam. In the board exam, if you just understand what is meant by current density and what's the direction of current density, that's sufficient. Then we must know about one more thing, that's SI unit of current density. What is SI unit of current density here? The SI unit of current density is, look here, so current density J is equal to I by A. What is current unit? Ampere. And what is the unit of area? Meter square. So don't get confused with this A and this A. See, this is the unit of current. Unit of current, which is nothing but ampere, which is represented by the letter A. What the unit of area? Unit of area is meter square. Therefore, the SI unit of current density is nothing but ampere per meter square. Now let us derive one expression or equation for the current and current density in terms of drift velocity. We already know few equations with respect to the current. That's I equal to Q by T. So basic equation, time rate of flow of electric charges is nothing but electric current, which can also be written as N into E by T, because Q is nothing but equal to N into E, where N refers to total number of electrons and E refers to charge of each electron. So this is one equation. Also, according to Ohm's law, I equal to V by R, ratio of the potential difference to the resistance of the conductor. Now, let us derive one more equation for the current flowing through the conductor in terms of drift velocity. Let's consider a conductor whose length is L and area of cross section is A. I is the current flowing through the conductor. Because of this current, what is the electric field that is set up inside the conductor? E is the electric field, which is always along the direction of the current. As a result of this electric field, now force acts on the free electrons of the conductor. Due to this, the electron begins to accelerate towards the positive terminal or towards the point of higher potential. So this end is said to be at higher potential and this end is said to be at lower potential. So that is what we have written here. L length of the conductor, A area of cross section of the conductor, I equal to current flowing through the conductor, E charge of the electron. Either I can write like this or I can write like this. Whenever we want to write the sign for the electron, then better write minus here. So we can represent electron like this. But while writing, sign should be written here. Charge of the electron, then Vd is nothing but drift velocity of the free electron. N refers to number density of the electron. What is meant by number density of the electron? It's nothing but number of electrons present or contained in unit volume of the conductor. What does it mean? Suppose if I consider one unit volume like this. So this is one unit volume. Means I imagine a cube of volume 1 meter cube. Then this unit volume, how many electrons are contained or how many electrons are present means n number of electrons are present. So this is the number of electrons contained in this unit volume. That's what we have written. And what is V? volume of the conductor, entire length of the conductor is L. For this entire length L, what is the total volume is V. Now, let us move on to mathematical part. Since we have to derive the expression for the current and current density in terms of velocity, I consider like this. What is the total volume of the conductor? Total volume of the conductor is nothing but V equal to A into L. If you multiply this length by area of cross section A, then it becomes the volume of the conductor. V is volume, not the potential difference. Because what is the unit of area? Meter square. What is the unit of length? Meter. Meter square into meter, meter cube, which is the unit of volume. So dimensionally left hand side and right hand side are one and the same. Meter cube, meter cube. Therefore, volume is obtained always multiplying area either by length or by thickness or by breadth. But here I consider length. Then what is the total number of electron present in this entire volume of the conductor? In one unit volume, number of electron is N. Then this entire volume V, what is the total number of electron? So total number of electron in the entire volume, of the conductor is equal to number of electrons per unit volume multiplied by total volume. What is total volume? A into L. So this number of electrons are contained in this conductor. Now this number of electron begins to move from one end to another end of the conductor because of electric field. So I write like this. What the total charge flowing through the conductor. Total charge flowing through the conductor is given by Q equal to total number of electrons flowing in the conductor multiplied by charge of the each electron. So how many electrons are flowing from one end to another end of the conductor? This number of electrons are flowing. What the charge of each electron? Charge of the each electron is E. So therefore, what I do means the total charge I write like this: Q equal to NaL, total number of electrons multiplied by charge of each electron. I write negative sign. But here Q is negative. Why Q is negative means electrons are flowing opposite to the electric field. Therefore, I can consider Q as negative, but Q is negative since E, electric field E and electrons are, since electric field E and electrons are moving opposite to E. So I can write simply like this: since electrons are moving opposite to E, Q can be taken as negative. If that is the case, then what happens now? Look here. This equation becomes now minus Q equal to NaL into minus E, means minus NaL into E. So minus and minus gets cancelled. Okay. So minus and minus get cancelled. Now Q equal to NaL into E. So this is the amount of charge that flows through the conductor in a time delta t. So I write like this: time taken by the charge Q to move from one end of the conductor to another end of the conductor. To move from one end to another end is given by delta t. Okay. So this amount of time is required for the charge q to flow from one end to another end. So from one end to another end, what the distance in which the charge q moves or travels? So the charge q travels a distance equal to L. So therefore, I can write this as delta t equal to L divided by Vd. How can I write this step here? We know that velocity equal to displacement over time, okay, or speed is equal to distance by time. If it is a vector quantity, then it becomes velocity. If it is considered as a scalar quantity, then it becomes speed. In both the case, what will be there in the numerator? Distance or displacement. Whereas in the denominator, time will be there. So therefore, if you cross multiply this one, what do you get? T equal to S by V. Okay? T equal to S by V. So that is what I used here. So delta t is the time taken by the charge to move from this end to this end by traveling or by covering a distance equal to length of the conductor. With what velocity this electron moves? This electron moves with a velocity Vd. So therefore, delta t equal to L divided by Vd. Now, but what is the current? How do you define current? But current is defined as time rate of flow of electric charges. That means I can consider the current like this, but I equal to Q divided by delta T. Now you substitute for the charge. What is charge here? Q equal to NAL into E. And also substitute for delta T. What is delta T? L by Vd. L divided by Vd. L and L gets cancelled. Vd goes to numerator from the denominator of the denominator. So therefore, I is equal to now N A E into Vd. So this is the expression for the current in terms of drift velocity Vd. So look here, number density of electron is constant, no change in the number density. Area of cross section of the conductor is also constant. So that's not going to change just by passing the current. By passing the current, number density and area of cross section are not going to change. Even the charge of the electron also remains constant. That means all these three are constant terms. When all these three are constants, then I can write like this. I is proportional to Vd. That means current is directly proportional to drift velocity. What does it mean? It means that if drift velocity increases, then the current also increases. Greater the drift velocity, greater will be the flow of current. So that's the meaning of this. Similarly, if I want to find the expression for current density is given by J equal to I by A. What is I now? I is equal to NAE into Vd divided by A. A and A gets cancelled. Then finally, we get the expression for current density J as equal to N into E into Vd. You just observe these two equations, this equation and this equation. Here current in terms of drift velocity, current density in terms of drift velocity. If I want to consider how current is related to drift velocity, then I can say like this. Current is directly proportional to drift velocity because all these are constant. Here once again, J is proportional to Vd. It's quite natural. If current increases, then current density also increases. Because what is current density? It is nothing but current flowing per unit area. If I increases, J also increases. Then for the increase of I and J, what should increase? drift velocity should increase. So these are the two expressions, one for current and one for current density. Now let us derive one more expression or the equation for current density J equal to sigma into E. This is nothing but, this equation represents the Ohm's law in vector form. That means, now we are deriving the mathematical form of Ohm's law in vector form, which is nothing but equal to J equal to sigma into E. What does the sigma represent? Sigma represents the conductivity of the material of the conductor. As usually, let us imagine one conductor of length L. L is the length of the conductor, and what is its area of cross section? Area of cross section of the conductor is A. That means, if this is the conductor, total length from ear to ear, it is L. Then this is nothing but area of cross section A. Then between the two ends of the conductor, what is the potential difference applied? V. Because this end of the conductor is maintained at positive potential, higher potential, whereas this end is maintained at negative potential or lower potential. How? By connecting the two ends to a cell or a battery, we can maintain the potential difference continuously. As a result of that, continuously current flows through the conductor. So due to the flow of current, an electric field is set up inside the conductor, and as a result of electric field, force acts on the free electrons, and due to the force, now the electron begins to accelerate opposite to the electric field with a velocity known as drift velocity Vd. So electron moves from now the lower potential end to the higher potential end against to the electric field. So L is the length, A is the area of cross section, and V is the potential difference, I is the current flowing through the conductor, E is the electric field set up inside the conductor, and sigma is nothing but the conductivity of the material of the conductor. What is meant by conductivity? So the ability of the conductor to allow the current to flow through it is nothing but here conductivity. Now let us go for the mathematical part. I can write the potential difference. We know that V is equal to E into L. What is the base to write the expression for potential difference like this? See, in case of electrostatics, in second chapter, that means electric potential and capacitance, we have come across one derivation. What is the derivation? V, potential difference between two ends, is nothing but equal to negative electric field at a point is equal to negative potential gradient. That means E equal to minus delta V by delta L. We derived this equation in the second chapter of electrostatics, that is electric potential and capacitance. The same equation can also be written as E equal to minus dV by dL or dV by dx. What is dV? Potential difference between the 2 points. Suppose point A, point B. What is the potential difference between the 2 points? I write this as dV. Then what is the distance between these 2 points? The distance between these 2 points is taken as dx. Now the electric field at any point, is given by E equal to minus dV by dx. So using this equation as the base, I can write like this. Instead of dV, which is potential difference, here we have V as the potential difference between the two ends. Instead of distance of separation equal to dx, we have distance of separation between the two ends as equal to L. So using this equation and neglecting negative sign, I can write V as equal to E into L, because if you cross multiply this, what do you get? Potential is equal to electric field into distance. Same thing I have written here. Potential difference is equal to electric field into distance between the two ends of the conductor, which is equal to L. Also, from Ohm's law, we know that V equal to I into R. Now if I compare these two equations, what do I get? Comparing the equations, I get now E into L as equal to I into R. Left hand side are one and the same. Therefore, right hand side of this must be equal to this. That's what I have written here. But we know that resistance depends on length of the conductor directly and it depends on area of cross section inversely. Using this concept, we derived an expression for the resistance in terms of resistivity. What is that equation? R equal to rho into L divided by A. See, be careful about the two notations used here. See, this is rho, which is nothing but the resistivity or specific resistance of the material of the conductor. Whereas, if you consider this sigma, it is nothing but conductivity. We know that conductivity and resistivity are opposite to each other. Resistivity means opposing the flow of current. Conductivity means allowing the current to flow. Therefore, these two are nothing but the reverse process. This one and as well as this. Okay? This and as well as this are the reverse process. So, therefore, R is equal to rho L divided by A. If I substitute for R in this equation, then what do I get now? E into L is equal to I. For R, I can write rho L divided by A. Okay. E into L is equal to I, rho L by A. Now, L and L gets cancelled. Understand? Then what is left here? I is equal to I by A into rho. But we know the expression for the ratio I by A. What is I by A? Current per unit area. It is nothing but the current density. So, but I by A is equal to J, which is nothing but current density. Also, we know that resistivity is nothing but reciprocal of conductivity. Now, I substitute these two in this equation. Let us call this as equation 1. Now, what happens to equation 1 now? Therefore, equation 1 becomes E equal to what is I by A? I by A is nothing but equal to J. What is this rho? Rho is equal to 1 by sigma. Now you cross multiply. J equal to rho into E. I can express this in vector form. Current density is a vector. Therefore, I write arrow. Whereas conductivity is a scalar. I return that as it is. Electric field is a vector. Therefore, once again, I put arrow to represent this as a vector quantity. So, this is nothing but the vector form of Ohm's law. So, this equation represents the vector form of Ohm's law. You compare this equation. Look here. J equal to sigma into E. Ohm's law, scalar form of Ohm's law is nothing but V equal to I into R or R into I. Look here. This is nothing but conductivity. This is nothing but resistance. We know that resistivity, resistance and conductance are opposite to each other. So, this term is equivalent to this. Strictly not equal, equivalent I can say. Whereas because of current, what is produced? Electric field is produced. So, I can compare this current with the electric field. Though both are different quantities, still I can compare. Whereas here current density is a vector quantity. So, in place of current density, what do we have? We have the potential difference. Because of potential difference only current flows. Because of current only we are able to define the current density. Therefore, this is nothing but vector form and this is nothing but scalar form of Ohm's law. So, this is how we can derive the scalar form of Ohm's law in vector form, which is nothing but, so J equal to sigma into E. Okay, thank you.